Hello and welcome to the 5th episode dedicated to medieval Asian wars. We've been exploring the complex dynamics between the Jin Dynasty and the Song Dynasty in medieval China. This episode focuses specifically on the military technologies that emerged during this period, and how the arms race between these two dynasties transformed warfare.
The Jin-Song Wars mark a turning point in the widespread application of gunpowder in warfare. What's particularly interesting is how both sides were driven to innovate, to develop new weapons to gain an advantage over their rivals.
So before we delve into the specifics of these groundbreaking weapons, let's set the stage. Can you remind us of the key historical context of the Jin-Song Wars?
Certainly. The Jin-Song Wars were a series of conflicts between the Jurchen-led Jin Dynasty and the Han-led Song Dynasty. They lasted from 1125 to 1234.
Okay.
Initially, these two dynasties were allies against a common enemy, the Khitan-led Liao dynasty. However, broken promises and territorial disputes ultimately led to a bitter rivalry, an all-out war. The Jin dynasty conquered the north, forcing the Song dynasty to retreat south, and ushering in the Southern Song period.
This period of intense conflict and upheaval became a crucible for military innovation. It's fascinating to see how the pressures of war can accelerate technological advancements. Let's start with one of the earliest gunpowder weapons used in these wars, the Huo Pao, or Firebomb.
The Huo Pao was a relatively simple but effective incendiary weapon used by both the Jin and the Song. Essentially, it was a container filled with gunpowder and other incendiary materials. These bombs were hurled against enemy troops and fortifications. Accounts from the sieges of Kaifeng, the Song capital, vividly describe the destructive potential of these bombs against wooden structures and troop formations.
It must have been a terrifying sight to witness these firebombs raining down on a besieged city. Can you elaborate on the variations in the Huo Pao employed by each side?
While both sides utilized the Huo Pao, there were subtle differences in their construction and deployment. The Jin dynasty, for instance, favored larger bombs designed for maximum destructive power. They often used these bombs during sieges to set fire to enemy fortifications. The Song dynasty, on the other hand, developed smaller, more portable versions that could be thrown by hand. These smaller bombs were particularly effective in close combat situations.
So even within this early stage of gunpowder warfare, we see tactical adaptations and innovations. Now let's move on to another groundbreaking weapon, the fire lance.
The fire lance was a truly revolutionary invention, essentially a spear with a flamethrower attached to it. It could also fire projectiles, making it a very versatile weapon.
Interesting.
The first recorded use of the fire lance was at the siege of Dian in 1132. Interestingly, the Song dynasty initially used it to target siege engines, demonstrating a clear understanding of its tactical strengths.
That speaks to a level of strategic thinking that goes beyond simply setting things on fire. They recognize the fire lance's potential to cripple enemy siege weapons.
Precisely. And over time, the fire lance evolved. Metal barrels replaced the original bamboo or paper ones, giving it longer range and more power. This made it increasingly effective against enemy infantry.
So the fire lance transformed from a specialized weapon used against siege engines into a more versatile tool, capable of engaging enemy troops directly. This technological evolution must have had a significant impact on the battlefield.
It did. The increased range and power of the fire lance forced armies to adapt their tactics. It also contributed to the growing importance of gunpowder in warfare.
Speaking of the growing importance of gunpowder, I understand there was a particularly important naval battle where gunpowder weapons played a key role. The Battle of Kishi. Can you tell us more about this battle and the role of gunpowder?
The Battle of Kishi in 1161 was a decisive victory for the Song dynasty. Their navy used a type of bomb launched by trebuchets from their warships called piliwoki. They were essentially Thunderclap Fireballs.
Thunderclap Fireballs. What made them so effective?
They contained a mixture of gunpowder, lime scraps of iron, and possibly even poisonous substances. The lime created a blinding smoke, adding to the chaos and confusion on the battlefield.
So these bombs were not only explosive, but they also had a psychological warfare aspect to them. The blinding smoke and the terrifying sound must have had a devastating impact on the morale of the Jin forces.
Precisely. And this battle really highlights the growing importance of gunpowder in naval warfare. It allowed the Song Navy, which was already superior to the Jin Navy in terms of shipbuilding and seamanship, to further press their advantage.
So we're seeing a pattern here. The Song dynasty, facing a more powerful enemy on land, turned to naval power. and gunpowder weapons to maintain their independence.
That's an astute observation. The Song dynasty's embrace of gunpowder technology and its skillful application in naval warfare played a crucial role in their ability to resist the Jin dynasty for over a century.
Now, the sources we've gathered mention a particularly intriguing development in gunpowder weaponry, the Huo Pao, or iron bomb. Can you explain what made this weapon so significant?
The Huo Pao was a groundbreaking invention, developed by the Jin dynasty. It was the first known bomb with a hard casing made of cast iron. This meant that it needed to detonate to be effective, marking a crucial step towards modern explosive weaponry.
So unlike the earlier incendiary bombs, which relied primarily on fire to inflict damage, the Huo Pao represented a shift towards explosive power. This innovation must have had a profound impact on the development of gunpowder technology.
It did. The Huo Pao demonstrated the potential of using hard casings to contain and direct the explosive force of gunpowder. This principle would pave the way for the development of more sophisticated explosive weapons in the centuries to come.
This arms race between the Jin and the Song was clearly pushing the boundaries of military technology. But how did these developments in gunpowder warfare affect the overall strategies and tactics employed by each side?
The rise of gunpowder weapons led to significant changes in both offensive and defensive tactics. On the offensive side, armies began to incorporate gunpowder weapons into their siege strategies. The use of firebombs and fire lances made it easier to overcome enemy fortifications.
I see.
On the defensive side, armies had to adapt their fortifications to withstand the destructive power of gunpowder weapons. Stone walls replaced wooden palisades, and moats were widened and deepened.
So the very landscape of warfare was being reshaped by the advent of gunpowder. But beyond these tactical adaptations, were there any broader strategic implications?
The rise of gunpowder also had a profound impact on the balance of power between the Jin and the Song. The Jin dynasty, initially dominant on land, found its advantage waning. As the Song dynasty developed its naval power and expertise in gunpowder warfare, this shift in the balance of power contributed to the prolonged nature of the conflict, as neither side could achieve a decisive victory.
It's remarkable how these technological innovations had such far-reaching consequences, affecting not just the battles themselves, but the overall course of the war.
Indeed, the Jin-Song Wars provide a compelling example of how technological advancements are intertwined with social, cultural, and political forces. They shape the destinies of entire societies.
Now, our sources highlight a specific event where the contrast in gunpowder technology between the Jin and the Song became particularly apparent. The Siege of Kizu in 1221. Can you elaborate on this siege? And the differences in weaponry employed by each side.
The Siege of Kizu was a significant engagement during the later stages of the Jin-Song Wars. It showcased the contrasting approaches to gunpowder warfare adopted by the two dynasties. The Jin dynasty, reliant on its Huo Pao, focused on delivering explosive power to breach the Song defenses. Their bombs were designed to create breaches in the walls and sow chaos among the defenders.
Okay.
The Song dynasty, on the other hand, relied primarily on incendiary bombs like the Huo Pao. They used these bombs to set fire to enemy siege engines and disrupt their assault.
So the Jin emphasized explosive power, while the Song focused on incendiary effects. It seems like a classic case of different technological paths driven by different strategic needs and circumstances.
Precisely. The Jin, facing a well-defended city, needed a weapon capable of breaking through fortifications. The Song, defending their city, sought to disrupt the enemy's siege operations and inflict casualties through fire.
These contrasting approaches to gunpowder warfare reveal a fascinating interplay between technology, strategy, and the specific challenges faced by each side.
Indeed. The Siege of Kizu provides a valuable insight into the evolving nature of gunpowder technology and how different armies adapted it to suit their own tactical objectives.
This deep dive into the early gunpowder weapons of the Jin-Song Wars has been incredibly illuminating. It's clear that this period marked a pivotal moment in military history. The innovations spurred by this conflict would go on to have a profound impact on warfare for centuries to come.
We've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating historical period. There's much more to explore in terms of the social, cultural, and political ramifications of the Jin-Song Wars and the rise of gunpowder. As we've seen, the Jin-Song Wars weren't simply about territorial expansion or technological superiority. They were also a clash of cultures, a struggle for dominance and legitimacy.
The Jin Dynasty, despite their military successes, faced a unique challenge, ruling over a population that was predominantly Han Chinese. This cultural divide must have created significant tensions.
It did, and the Jin Dynasty chose to address this challenge through a process known as Sinicization.
essentially adopting Chinese culture and practices.
Precisely, however, this Sinicization was a gradual and at times contradictory process. Initially, the Jin rulers tried to maintain a distinct Jurchen identity. They promoted their own language and customs.
But over time, as the pressure from the Southern Song increased, they began to incorporate more and more elements of Chinese culture.
Exactly. They adopted the Chinese bureaucratic system, they embraced Confucianism, and they even developed their own writing system based on the Chinese model. This process of assimilation was a testament to the enduring influence of Chinese civilization, even in the face of military defeat.
It's fascinating how the conquered can influence the conquerors. The Jin rulers realized that to effectively govern their newly acquired territories, they needed to understand and adapt to the culture of the people they ruled.
Indeed, this Sinicization of the Jin dynasty had far-reaching consequences. It contributed to a blending of Jurchen and Han Chinese cultures. It influenced everything from art and literature to politics and social customs.
It's a reminder that history is never a simple, straightforward narrative. There are always these layers of complexity, these unexpected twists and turns.
The Jin-Song Wars are a prime example of that. Now let's shift our focus back to the Southern Song. Despite losing the north, they demonstrated remarkable resilience.
They established a new capital in Linen, which became a thriving center of trade and culture. Their economic recovery during this period is particularly noteworthy.
What's particularly interesting is the Song's economic relationship with the Jin dynasty. Their trade actually flourished during this period despite the ongoing conflict.
It seems counterintuitive to trade with your enemy. What were the driving forces behind this economic exchange?
There were practical considerations on both sides. The Song dynasty needed horses from the north for their military, and the Jin dynasty, despite their Sinicization, still retained a strong demand for luxury goods from the south, like silk and porcelain. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement, even if it was somewhat ironic given the political circumstances.
So in a way, economics trumped politics.
In this case, yes. And this economic interdependence likely contributed to the relative peace that prevailed between the two dynasties after the Treaty of Shaoxing in 1142.
The Treaty of Shaoxing formally recognized the Jin dynasty as the superior power, and it established the Huai River as the boundary between the two states.
That's correct. It was a significant turning point, marking the beginning of a period of relative stability that lasted for several decades. However, this peace was not without its challenges.
Were there further conflicts?
There were. The fourth Jin emperor, Wanyan Liang, was a particularly ambitious ruler. He dreamt of conquering all of China. He launched a major invasion of the Southern Song in 1161, aiming to capture their capital and unify the country under his rule.
That was a bold move. Did he succeed?
He did not. The Song dynasty, having learned from their earlier defeats, had strengthened their defenses, particularly along the Yangtze River, which was a major obstacle for the invading Jin forces.
And this is where the Battle of Kishi comes into play.
Exactly. This naval battle fought on the Yangtze River near the city of Kishi was a decisive victory for the Song dynasty. Their superior naval technology, particularly their use of gunpowder bombs launched from trebuchets, proved instrumental in repelling the Jin invasion.
Once again, we see gunpowder playing a pivotal role in shaping the course of history.
Indeed. The Battle of Kishi was a major setback for Wanyan Liang's ambitions. It ultimately led to his downfall. He was assassinated by his own general shortly after the defeat, marking the end of his short-lived dream of conquest.
And the Song dynasty managed to hold on to their independence.
Yes, but their victory was not solely due to their military prowess. It was also a testament to their adaptability, their ability to learn from their past mistakes and to innovate in the face of adversity.
It's a recurring theme in the story of the Southern Song. They were constantly under pressure, but they always seemed to find a way to adapt and survive.
Now, as we move further into the 13th century, a new power emerges on the scene, the Mongols.
The Mongols. Genghis Khan and his unstoppable horde.
Their rise would have a profound impact on both the Jin and the Song dynasties, ultimately leading to the demise of both. But before we delve into the Mongol conquests, let's take a closer look at one final conflict between the Jin and the Song.
I'm intrigued. What was this conflict about?
By early 13th century, the Jin dynasty was facing a growing threat from the Mongols in the north. They had already lost significant territory, and their military strength was waning in a desperate attempt to regain some lost ground. They launched a series of attacks against the Southern Song in the 1210s.
So they were trying to compensate for their losses in the north by attacking the south.
Yes, it was a risky strategy, and it ultimately backfired. The Song dynasty by this time had developed a strong military force, and they were able to successfully repel the Jin invasions.
These victories must have further bolstered the Song dynasty's confidence and their determination to resist any further attempts at conquest.
They did, but the respite was short-lived. The Mongol threat loomed large, and it was only a matter of time before it engulfed both the Jin and the Song.
This period of medieval Asian warfare is full of twists and turns. It's almost like watching a game of chess, with each move leading to unexpected consequences.
It is very much like that, and as we'll see in our next episode, the entry of the Mongols onto the stage would completely change the game, leading to a dramatic reshaping of the political landscape of China. The Mongol conquests represent a truly pivotal moment in history, not just for China, but for much of Eurasia.
They were renowned for their military prowess, their horsemanship, their archery skills, and their ruthless tactics.
Under the leadership of Genghis Khan, they forged a vast empire, stretching from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe.
And the Jin Dynasty was one of their first major targets in China.
Recognizing the weakening state of the Jin dynasty, the Mongols launched a full-scale invasion in the early 13th century.
The Jin Dynasty, already weakened by their conflicts with the Song and internal strife, were ill-prepared to face this new threat.
There were. The Mongols, with their superior cavalry and mastery of siege warfare, quickly gained the upper hand.
And this is where we see a fascinating twist in the story.
The Song dynasty, rather than aiding their old enemy, the Jin, decided to form an alliance with the Mongols.
An alliance with the Mongols? That seems like a risky move considering the Mongols' reputation for brutality.
It was a calculated risk. The Song rulers believed that by allying with the Mongols, they could finally defeat the Jin dynasty and potentially regain control of the north.
So they saw the Mongols as a means to an end.
Precisely, and initially, the alliance proved successful. The combined forces of the Mongols and the Song laid siege to Kizu, the last stronghold of the Jin dynasty.
And Kizu fell in 1234, marking the end of the Jin dynasty.
It did, but the Song dynasty's triumph was short-lived.
Because the Mongols, having conquered the Jin, turned their attention to the Song.
Exactly. The alliance quickly unraveled, and the Mongols, under the leadership of Kublai Khan, launched a new invasion, this time targeting the southern Song.
And despite their valiant resistance, the Song dynasty was unable to withstand the Mongol onslaught.
They were. The final defeat came in 1279 at the Battle of Yamen, a naval battle fought near Guangdong.
And with that defeat, the Song dynasty fell, and all of China came under the rule of the Mongol Yuan dynasty.
It was a dramatic conclusion to centuries of conflict and upheaval.
This deep dive has taken us on a journey through a pivotal period in Chinese history, a time of war, innovation, and profound cultural change.
We've seen how the rivalry between the Jin and the Song dynasties spurred the development of gunpowder warfare, forever altering the face of warfare.
We've explored the complex process of Sinicization as the Jin dynasty grappled with the challenges of ruling over a predominantly Han Chinese population.
And we've witnessed the rise and fall of empires as the Mongols swept across Asia, reshaping the political landscape.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of medieval Asian wars. We hope you found this exploration as fascinating as we did.
Remember, history is a tapestry woven with threads of conflict, innovation, and human resilience.
And by delving into these stories, we gain a deeper understanding of the forces that have shaped our world. Don't forget to leave your comments and follow us for more deep dives into intriguing historical topics.